Hi, I'm Doni. I'm Trinidadian Costa Rican.
Hi, I'm Rhonda. I'm Afro-Honduran. And we are your co-hosts for Negra Como Soy.
Or I am Afro-Latina. Every Tuesday, we'll bring you the insights, perspectives, and history of the African diaspora in Latin America.
To educate, enlighten, and hopefully create a sense of belonging for you, our listeners and viewers.
Negra Como Soy is brought to you by Cultures, the global multicultural magazine. Cultures celebrates cross-cultural identity because everyone should feel like they matter. ¿Qué tal, Rhonda? ¿Qué tal?
¡Hey! Bien, bien, bien. ¿Qué pedo vos?
Oh, man. I'm so happy to be here. Like, I'm thrilled that we're doing this.
Yes.
It's amazing. You and I talked about how we never really get to be around people like us. So
Yes.
Every time we get together, it's like too many things that are alike. And I don't know, for me, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's so exciting. But I heard you lost your dad recently. How
Yes.
are you doing?
Unfortunately, you know, it's interesting. Believe it or not, I mean, it's horrible. And so he had cancer. And my stepmom is not going to like me saying all of this, but you know, he had cancer and he was fighting it for a while. And this is the second time he was fighting it. The first time he did not tell us. So I think back to all those years and it's like, dang, it's a good thing I didn't do anything super horrible, you know, because like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Because he was sick the whole time and just didn't say anything. But then he fought it and won, and then he got it again. And I think he told us this time because he knew that he wasn't going to make it, even though he was fighting really hard. And in the end, COVID is what got him. You know, and it was nerve-wracking because every week he had to go for chemo at the hospital, and he lives in New York City. My dad is Costa Rican. He's been here. He came here when he was 18 and put himself through college driving a taxi cab. And yeah, he's lived there. Well, no, that's not true. I was going to say he's lived there ever since. But as we get into our backgrounds and my background, I've lived everywhere. My dad lived a lot of places once he came to the United States. But it really inspired me, and he really inspired me. And I feel like I don't have the right to be devastated because it would dishonor him. That's how I feel, right? Like, so he's really, really inspired me. Now, I did take my time. I sat on the couch through pandemic and ate ice cream for a few weeks. I'm looking at my face now and I feel like I look like I was eating ice cream. But yeah.
I feel like we're all guilty of sitting down with a tub of ice cream at least once in the past 2 years.
I was like, I have an excuse. I don't even like ice cream. I mean, I like ice cream. Ice cream is like cheesecake to me. Like if someone gives it to me and I taste it, it's fantastic. But if I have a choice, it's not like I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go get some ice cream. You know what I mean? So I find that interesting, and I chose literally every day to sit with a whole tub of ice cream. You know, and we're not talking the low calorie stuff. It was like Haagen-Dazs.
Oh my goodness.
It was like the really creamy ice cream. Anyway, if I show you a picture, we should probably show a picture. But then after a few weeks of that, and I was just kind of devolving, I was like, dude, you know, as I talked to his wife of 45 years, I was like, not my mother because they're divorced, but she was basically telling me some of the things. Like she wouldn't, over time, I think as he knew he got worse, he wouldn't let her come to the appointments with him. And, you know, he was working still, and the nurse would be like, you drive yourself home after chemo? And she's like, somebody should be driving you. And little did she know, he was actually driving. He had his own business. He would drive to go work. And where he had to drive from Jersey to Brooklyn to do whatever, you know, run an errand or whatever, and then drive back to Jersey. That, for anyone who lives on the East Coast, is a long trek, right? And you just had chemotherapy. You know, when I was younger, my significant other underwent chemo, and it wipes you out. It wipes you out. And so I was just like, wow, he still continued his life. And the first time around, he didn't tell anybody that he was going through it. And so I just felt like I didn't really have the right to sit around and be sad. And he just really inspired me. So at Cultures Magazine, which, as you know, I should have brought a copy to show, but we'll put a graphic up. Cultures, he's part of the reason I have Cultures. He and my mother, and the way I grew up, which is on 5 continents and 7 cultures. And I was like, my brother and I, we are his legacy. So we need to live that legacy, and we need to make him proud. So 2 things. So as I grew up, I told you how I grew up. I lived in Spain when I was about 5, and I was like, everybody I know speaks Spanish. I want to speak French. So I started learning French. It took 8 years of French. Then when I was in college, I was going to go study abroad in France, ended up studying in Germany. So I had to learn German in a month. So French and German. Spanish was way back. Then I got to be an adult, and I was like, what was I thinking? Like, Spanish. I can't use these other languages, not in the United States anyway, not very often. And as you know, if you don't use them, you lose them. So for decades, you can see by the hair how many decades it might be. For decades, I really wanted to just show up and start speaking Spanish to my dad. Right, because that's his native language. He wouldn't have said, he's one of those, he wouldn't have said anything. He might have had a little turn up of the lip, but inside, he would have been all fluttery. So I wanted, when I got married, I wanted to, do a speech in Spanish and all these different milestones. And I just kept letting life getting in the way. So when this happened, I was like, this is the year. I'm going to learn Spanish this year. I'll be fluent by the end of the year. And so he passed away on Easter. And then I did a tour of South and Central America that will be featuring in Cultures Magazine. It'll be the year of Latin America this year. And, it was still COVID. I was by myself for 13 months in the house. So if you can imagine, I didn't go anywhere. I barely took out my trash. I definitely didn't let anybody come to my house.
Oh my goodness.
And I was working 24/7 on 24/7. It feels like on Zoom. And I was like, okay, everybody I knew was like, wait, you haven't gone anywhere for 13 months? You're going to Colombia? You don't even go outside. You're going to Colombia? It's like, yes, I'm going to Colombia. But if you think about how I grew up, for me, it makes sense. And anybody who's a third culture kid, you'll find out over the course of this podcast what that is. Anybody who grew up cross-culturally could probably relate. Like, going to Colombia is part of feeding my soul. Like, going outside is, I gotta say, I did go outside. I lived on my balcony. I called my balcony France for the first half of the summer. Then it was Italy for the second half of the summer. And I kept putting all these plants and colors out. I had 2 umbrellas. It was like a whole room of furniture. All my neighbors would just come to wave and see because they're like, it's so pretty. I'm like, I live out here.
Everyone deserves to feel seen. And at Cultures, we get it. Because our editors have been there. Cultures Media celebrates cross-cultural identity because everyone should feel like they matter. Visit culturesmag.com today to join our community for free and start living in full color.
So in your travels, did you visit the town where your dad grew up?
Well, so I had been to Costa Rica before, right? Like of course, that's part of, I shouldn't say of course, but for me, of course, right? In the way I grew up. And I've probably been to Costa Rica 6 times. Trinidad, I lived in. My first international trip was at age 2 weeks. And I went from New York City, where I was born, to Trinidad and Tobago. And, but I had been there many times. I just came back from Costa Rica. You and I got to go together.
Yes, we did.
And unfortunately, that wasn't on the side of I always want to call it an island. It's not an island. We know it's not an island, right? But we didn't go to that side of the country, which is the Caribbean side. He's actually from San Jose, which is the main city. And somebody had the nerve a Canadian expat, had the nerve to throw some shade on San Jose. Said, what did he say? He said it was a, well, I won't repeat what he said. He was a blank hole. And I was like, oh, what? What's wrong with San Jose?
Well, what's your favorite part about San Jose? Like, what's your favorite memory of being there?
I mean, I don't really have a favorite. I really love Limon, which a lot of my family is from. So Limon is a little further south from San Jose, and it's very Caribbean. There are a lot of brown-skinned people there. You know, it's interesting when you look at Costa Rica, there's more indigenous tone-skinned people, and then there are very dark-skinned people, much darker than I am. And then there are very white-skinned people, more Spaniard-looking. So it's interesting. Same like the rest of Latin America, which you and I will jump into on so many episodes, right? And people don't realize the culture, the flavor, the food, the dance, the music that has seasoned Latin culture from the African diaspora. But you look at Costa Rica and you could see the disparity, and people don't think about that when you think of Latinness or Latina-ness. You just think of a certain look, and there's not a certain look, and I find that special. And so I find Limon special. I find San Jose special. And then I call the other side. I'm like, oh, that's the side you go to like sit on the beach and not talk to anybody. Like you're chilling. Like I'm stressed from work side. That's that side. But if you want to go have a good time and come back with some spice, you need to go to the
Caribbean side. Yeah. Like what you're hearing? Give us a rating and subscribe on your platform. You can also show your support by subscribing to our content at the link below. Now, I tell people, especially like, you know, when they question the Latino side of the Afro, that if you go throughout Central and South America, it's much like the United States. You can definitely go through cities and cities and not see too many brown people or even tan people, but it doesn't mean that they don't exist in the United States. It's as varied as the U.S. is, from the styles of music and the foods and the complexions of the people and the hair types and what kind of backgrounds everyone has. So.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, it's so funny. My stepmom was telling me on my dad's death certificate, she was fighting with the coroner or somebody, because on his death certificate they put that he's white.
Oh,
and and she was like, you know, I need you to fix this because his kids are gonna think that I just made this up. Because it's COVID, right? Like we haven't had a funeral, we haven't been there, nothing. And so they were like, but it says he's Costa Rican. And she had a whole long conversation with these people. And in the end, they sent her a new one. It still says he's white.
Oh my goodness.
When I was little, when I was in school, I remember before, because I went to, it wasn't junior high in the United States. Like 9th grade up is called junior high. And I know not everybody has that. But my paperwork said I was white all before that. And I would be like, have you seen me? I don't understand. But I think that was part of it too. Like people have in their head when you say Costa Rican what that is going to look like. And so this person would not believe his wife. They would just believe what they thought it should look like. And that's what they put on official paperwork. And can you imagine how many people's think about paperwork in general? I'm sure you've had other instances. I know I have.
Oh, yes.
Where people they haven't been international, or they don't understand the cross-culturalness of it, and they don't believe you. So they just do what they want to do because no, it's supposed to be like this, but you're like, but it's not like that.
Absolutely. But that's where you sit and reflect and like, you see, this is an election. It's an election. It's not an actual status, right? It's not an actual state of being. It's an election.
So expand on that a little more.
Sure. I met a couple. So they were by my definition, an African-American couple, but they went through legal paperwork to change their designation to white. And so all of their documentation, their IDs, list them as white because there's nothing in US law that states that you have to be a certain complexion to be white. It's an election.
Well, that makes sense. I mean, I can understand someone doing that because of the advantages that it will get you. Like if you had paperwork go somewhere and people just read it, now you're on an even playing field. I mean, they've talked about resumes and names on resumes and what that does for people and what gets you in the in the round filing cabinet versus the square filing cabinet. Right?
Yes.
But so I could see that being a thing.
That's one way. And then on the opposite way, I have a friend who's from Ethiopia, and she was designated white because Northern Africa is listed as white. And so she went in, much like your stepmother did, and said, no, I don't want this here. I'm not white. What? Why is this say, why does it say that? And so she had hers changed the opposite way.
Yes. No, it's interesting, the politics of it, the socialness of it. And that's why we're here, right? Like, yes. I'm really looking forward to creating an amazing season, delving into all of these things and going to all these countries. So you and I went to Costa Rica. I was in Colombia and Peru and Mexico City. This year I will be in Argentina. And we're going to try to go to Honduras. We're actually going to continue the tour.
Yes.
And so hopefully we can bring a lot of things to the listeners and viewers, and hopefully some insight that will help them grow and see that we're not all the same. We're the same inside. We're the same inside.
In here.
Don't forget that.
Well, thank you for sharing about your dad.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't imagine the kind of loss that you must feel, but
yeah, it's interesting. And you know how grief is. It comes, you think you're all fine, just walking down the street, and so it just hits you in the back of the head. But I can't even explain to you how much he's inspired me. Like, it's a big, big deal. So I ended up I wasn't fluent by the end of the year. I'm advanced intermediate. And then some days, like I noticed yesterday, like my tongue was so heavy, I couldn't say anything. So, I'm pushing it too hard. You have to it's just like exercise. You have to give your brain a break. And then all of a sudden, it's like, wait, I can say all these things. I couldn't say these last time. But yes, because I didn't reach the goal I wanted, like I've been overdoing it, but I'm going to continue. And I think part of it is because the beginning of the trip, I was around way too many English speakers. But now I make a point. And then when people want to speak English to me, I still speak Spanish back to them. That's okay. You can do your thing. I'm doing my thing. Okay.
Yeah, and we'll have to talk about that too in one of these episodes, how, especially in a darker skin, when you speak to people in Spanish, they keep wanting to revert back to English. Like, why are you doing that?
Oh, see, I didn't think of it that way so I remember when I'm not trying to make any stereotypes. I'm just telling you my experience. Whenever I'm in France, my impression is that French people do not like it if you cannot speak French. So they never do that, right? But when I was in Germany, man, if you make a mistake, boom, straight to English. Forget you. Stop with that nonsense that you're trying. We're going to English because I can speak that. I don't know what you're speaking over there. And so you had to get good quick. And also I learned German in Bavaria and then ended up going to university in Berlin. And it's a whole different dialect. So, I'm in Berlin and I'm all please and thank you and sweet and soft. And they were always looking at me like I was crazy. And I was like, in Bavaria, everybody thought my German was fantastic. Why are you looking at me like that? And then one of these days, I'll tell you the story of when my German changed and when people started listening to me in Germany. But yes, you need to speak properly and well so they don't come for you. So I didn't think, that's a good perspective. I didn't think of it necessarily as a skin tone thing, but it might be. I just took it, as I speak English better than you speak Spanish, so I'm going to keep doing this. And I'm like, okay, well, you keep with that, and I'll correct your English when it's wrong. And then I'll keep with this, and you can correct me. You have my permission.
Yes, we'll explore it.
Yeah, that would be a good one. I can't wait for that one. Well, thank you, Rhonda. This was fun.
Yeah, thank
always,
you so
always
much.
Pleasure.
We always laugh too much, and now I have that headache from smiling however long we've been talking.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
It is a good thing. And thank you all for listening in and hanging out with us for a bit.
Yeah, definitely. And if you like what you heard and you want more, please don't forget to rate the podcast.
Yes.
And subscribe on your platform. Join our community. We would love to hear from you and maybe feature your story as well.
Yeah, and if you come back, we'll be here every Tuesday with a brand new episode.
Not if, they're coming back. What? When you come back, every Tuesday, we will see you.
Yes, we'll see you next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Cultures is thrilled to bring you the best of cross-cultural identity through highlights of the African diaspora in Latin America. Want more? Support us with a subscription that includes 3 annual deliveries of media, products, and experiences to embolden your cross-cultural identity and ensure you live in full color. Subscribe today at culturesmag.com/subscribe.